Hey everybody, Boris, PK Forex. Welcome to the weekly technicals for the majors for Euro dollar, dollar yen, pound dollar, November 19th, November 23rd, 2018. The question for the week ahead, is the dollar done? That was really the answer that we got at the end of this week. Now next week, as we're entering into this week, is a big holiday week in North America, specifically in the US, where Thursday, Friday are a major holiday, Thanksgiving Day holiday. Friday, the markets will be open, but nobody will be around. It's literally a 3-day week, and it's basically a 2.5-day week. That's why you're going to see very little event risk and very little, frankly, serious market involvement. So the main movement factors, I think, next week will certainly be political. Primarily, of course, the Brexit story out of the UK, perhaps secondarily, the story on the European front with Italy. But the big shock as we closed out this week was this kind of a overt or covert or obscure type of a warning from the vice chair of the Fed today that he thought the monetary policy may need to ease a little bit. Now, this is completely in contrast to what the Fed has been saying for the longest time, that the economy is all systems go. We're on a 25 basis point rate hike for as long as the eye can see, blah, 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 blah. The Fed is starting to appreciate, or the policymakers, at least in the U.S., are beginning to appreciate that perhaps there's a global slowdown. With Brexit now, an existential event in UK, it's one of those kind of things that could have a hemorrhaging effect on the whole global system. Because if it's unclear how UK is going to integrate into the European economy, remember, it's not just the European economy. UK, in many ways, is the heart of the global financial system. It is the primary artery from Asia to North America, which funnels lots and lots of transactions. And if it doesn't have access, full unencumbered access to the European continent from a financial point of view, it creates all sorts of tremendous problems. So the Brexit dilemma, as it stands right now, could be becoming a global dilemma. Despite the fact that UK is a tiny little economy in the global landscape, its presence on the financial sphere, which in this case is a very important one, is a major impact. And that's perhaps one of the things that the monetary policy in the U.S. are starting to appreciate. So these are much more dovish tones we heard out of them. And that in turn, of course, has blown the dollar to bits today as we close out the week. Now, the levels in the euro dollar pretty much remain the same from last week to this week, although we did test the bottom. And we'll talk about this in a second, how we did break that 13 handle. We did have a continuation trade, as I noted last week. But now we've really recovered, and now the trade comes back to the other side. Yen, on the other hand, failed. We've been talking about the fact that dollar yen has been the one key tell that perhaps the dollar story is exhausted. Yen failed at the 14 and now is really threatening to possibly test the 12 as the week progresses next week. And of course, cable is just a soap opera. It almost doesn't merit a commentary because it doesn't really matter. It's whatever is the next headline. But of course, the big headline that is going to be the dominant story, I think, next week is Theresa May surviving her leadership or not surviving her leadership. Does she still hobble through and try to nurse this half-baked deal with the European Union? Or is she perhaps going to face a complete rebellion from the ranks and therefore face a no confidence vote, which in turn is very likely to turn into a general election vote? All of this as the March deadline approaches. So it just looks like a complete pandemonium in the UK land. We'll talk about that in just a second as well. Turning to the calendar, literally nothing on the board. I mean, there's just nothing here of any importance or interest in the major land. U.S., we have durable goods, existing home sales, U of Mich, all of that just crammed into Wednesday because, of course, nothing is going to be going on Thursday or Friday. Then on Friday, we have a smattering of European data, including the flash PMI data. None of this is really record-breaking. A little bit of interesting data out of Canada with retail sales, but of course, we'll talk about that in the comm dollars. But as far as the majors, just nothing. There's nothing here going on. It's a very quiet week. So that turns us to the charts. Let's take a look at the charts here. And I think the charts are fascinating because you look at the euro, and the euro did indeed break the 13. We did have a continuation, but the last 4 days we've had basically a reversal of flows, and today a major reversal of flows. We're closing on the highs. It's a very positive structure here and suggests that we could extend all the way to this 15 level. This is the key level. We failed at this level before, but the 15 level is a really, really big level. If we can take that and hold it, that would suggest that there's an intermediate term bottom here in the euro, and therefore the selling in the euro may have stopped for the near term, and we could be seeing a lot of churn and congestion with possibly a retest back up towards the 16, 17 as the year to the close comes to a close. The cable story is fascinating because the cable story is, of course, very idiosyncratic. What's really fascinating about cable is this 127 level. That is key. Now, if we get a slew of terrible news next week, let's say Theresa May has a no confidence vote, doesn't pass, Parliament goes into a complete turmoil, and the prospect of a fresh election, perhaps into the year end, haunts the UK government with the wonderful choice of Jeremy Corbyn on one side and Theresa May on the other side. I literally cannot think of a less attractive political choice for any major OECD economy right now. But of course, I'm sure you guys in Australia feel differently, and I'm sure we in America feel differently as well. But really, it's just it's unbelievable at how lame the choices are. But it speaks to the testament, I think, that if we do get more political risks here, this 127 is critical. We break the 127, it opens the full flood all the way down to 124s. It takes out pretty much the lows, the swing lows of this year. I think if I have to, let me just type, yeah, I mean, you see that it takes out all the swing lows, not just of this year, but all the way to last year. Very, very negative prospect. So watching that very carefully. On the other hand, if we kind of hold the lows here for a couple of days, and if cable trades through the holds the 28s basically for another day or two, and the market begins to feel like perhaps the worst is over, and she can negotiate this half-baked deal through the Parliament, that is a positive for cable, because at very worst, the situation in UK and Europe remains relatively the same, and that creates a relief rally here to push us through the 130 all the way out to the 132s. So watching this very key levels in cable as the primary drivers. And of course, yen, we talked about the idea that there was a failure at the 14, failure now at this 14, this lower high. And this week we really saw the full destruction of the dollar trade here. Still, I warn you that it's not a full bearish trade because we still have higher lows and the uptrend holds, but just barely. So a breakdown through the 112s, if we see it next week, that would be a very, very negative structure, and it would suggest a full distribution top now, dollar failing. This would also probably connote 10 years going back down to the 3% level, which nobody expected, given the hard pace of tightening from the Fed. I still continue to believe on a macro level that we hit peak growth in Q2, and this is what you're seeing in the currency market. The market is basically reflecting the fact that the dollar rally may be done. That's how the week is shaping up. Wish you guys the best luck, the best trading. Boris Schlossberg, over and out.